Hello, everyone. So I've got a really cool, awesome collaboration review today. I'm here with Amy from the Movie Checklist, and we're going to talk about the movie, the Netflix comic book adaptation of The Old Guard. That's really exciting, and I'm really excited to be here with her. Like, she has a lot of really great content. I've liked her videos and stuff for a long time. Yeah, so Amy, why don't you introduce yourself and like talk about the stuff that you do on YouTube and
Yeah, well, I'm Amy. I talk a lot about movies pretty much anywhere you can find me on Instagram, on Twitter, Letterboxd, and then on my YouTube channel, the Movie Checklist. I haven't been posting on there a lot, but I still am active on there and do hauls and stuff every month. I can't even remember what I do on there anymore. But I am the most active on my podcast. We release a new episode every other week. It's called The Nostalgia Effect, and we talk about movies from our childhood. So a lot of 80s and 90s nostalgic movies, sometimes even 70s. And we look at them through the lens of adulthood. So it's very interesting because a lot of us, like everybody in the podcast, is in their 30s. So it's very interesting to see some of those movies that we watched as we were kids that are very 90s and very 80s.
Yeah, it's really cool. So like rewatching like the kind of 90s classics, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was the last episode you guys did?
On Monday, we released Angels in the Outfield. So
yeah.
Baby Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It was very interesting. That movie really, really holds up. I highly recommend, if you can find it, to give it a watch, especially right now in these current times. It's a nice like breath of fresh air.
Yeah. Isn't also Danny Glover in that? Isn't he like the coach?
Danny Glover, Tony Danza, Matthew McConaughey. Actually, it came out after Dazed and Confused, but he was probably filming it as Dazed and Confused was coming out. And there's a bunch of people in this movie. Like, you wouldn't even believe. Like, you start watching and you're like, oh, I know that person, and you don't even remember that they're in the movie.
Yeah, I always love when you like rewatch something, and then I watched this movie, Deep Rising, and that had a crazy cast, like all of the random people that were like mercenaries. It was like Damon Hansu and Cliff Curtis and all these people that you know them.
Yeah.
Even if you've seen them a little, but you know them, right?
Yeah, it's like they're like those character actors that you're just like, oh, I see you in everything. I don't know your name as an actor, but I can pick out 15 different things that I know you from.
Yeah, for sure. And you have a Patreon, right? And you release more content on there.
I've been really, really active on Patreon as well. It's patreon.com/the movie checklist. And I post at least I take extensive notes for every movie that I watch pretty much, especially if it's a new movie. And I post those on there. And I actually started writing on my blog again for the first time in forever. It's themoviechecklist.wordpress.com. I don't have a full URL. And actually, I'm a contributing writer on filmspeak.net. I do monthly collector's corners on there where I talk about all of the different things that you should be picking up, Blu-rays, collectibles, Criterions especially. And I also do some reviews on there occasionally.
Oh, that's really
everywhere.
Cool. Yeah. That's really cool. Like there's a lot of your stuff is out there in the world. That's great.
So I may not be active on YouTube, but I'm in the internet, active a lot of other places.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So I guess this will be added to your list of places. All right. So we're going to talk about this Netflix film, The Old Guard. So this is it's an adaptation of this Greg Rucka comic book. And so he wrote the screenplay. Charlize Theron is the sort of the lead actress in it. This is another sort of action film for her. She's been on a string of like some good ones. She was in Atomic Blonde. She was in this, Mad Max, Fury Road. And so this film follows a group of characters who, for whatever reason, they have been given this gift or curse of immortality. And so they have been warriors throughout history, and at different time periods they've inherited this gift, and they also have this sort of connection where they meet with each other, and they sort of are trying to figure out what to do with themselves, being given this gift or curse. And the beginning of the film, pretty much all of them are meeting up again for the first time in, I think it was like a year or so, because they sort of have been sought out to do a mission, which was to help this group of people in, I think it's like Africa or something like that are being held hostage by some kind of terroristic group. And it's this guy, the CIA agent Copley, who's played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. He's the one who kind of recruits them into doing this job. And so, at the beginning, we can kind of tell they're very sensitive about, people knowing things about them. There's like a scene at the very beginning where Andy, Charlize Theron's character, like someone accidentally just takes a picture of her, and then she kind of like basically goes up to them and like deletes the photo. So yeah, they're kind of like they're not really wanting to do this job. Not all of them are, especially Andy. She's kind of against it, but they sort of get convinced to do it. And they go to this location. They do this operation, and it turns out that it's a trap. And they sort of get attacked by this group of other special forces agents. But of course, they can't die, so they are able to overcome and defeat these people. But the whole thing was Agent Copley is just trying to get evidence that these people are real and that they, are actually immortal. Which then sets the group off to having to sort of, find a way to not get caught, because that's always their fear, is that they're going to get caught and someone's going to try and, I don't know, turn them into lab rats, basically. So yeah, what'd you think of like this opening scene, especially like when they went to the location and had to try and free these people?
I'm going to be honest. I watched the first probably like 15 minutes, and then I fell asleep because it was like really early in the morning. And then I did not pick the film back up until like 5 to 8 days later. I think it was like over a week when I started rewatching again. So I kind of don't remember the opening sequence.
Yeah.
I do remember kind of you get thrown in there without really kind of getting to know the characters. You get to know them as the film goes on, which is something I really, really like. I like that you kind of organically get to know the characters. You just get thrown in there and you get to know their relationship and kind of what they're about. But that first like fight scene where they find themselves in the trap is really interesting. I think that's about where I stopped watching it. And it was just a lot of action and a lot of fun, like just pure Charlize Theron action. And I really loved that part of it for sure.
Yeah, one thing I really like about her character is like I feel like they all have their kind of their thing that marks where they're from, right? So she has this really cool axe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
probably the coolest weapon I've ever seen in any movie, except for maybe like Mandy, the axe that he has at the end of Mandy. Is so cool.
That thing in Mandy is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like up there with that for sure.
Yeah.
It's just so unique looking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just want to see her use it.
Yeah, and I feel like she barely uses it. She uses it at the beginning, and then she kind of has it towards the mission at the end of the film. And I was just like, I want to see more of it.
Yeah, totally. Like, you really want to see more of this, her using it. Like, that's kind of a disappointing thing. Is like, hey, just go to the well with that. We want to see it more.
Yeah, they set it up to be something really big because it's like the big icon on the poster is that circle shape with the cutout, and it's like you feel like it's going to be something that you see a lot of, but you only get to see her use it like a handful of times.
Yeah, which again, hopefully. We'll get into like if there's going to be a sequel. Hopefully, if there is a sequel, we'll get some more of that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but everyone does have sort of like their own unique weapon. I know a couple of them had like a katana and other kind of medieval age swords. So yeah, they all like have sort of something that indicates what time period they came from, basically. Yeah. So okay, so now they've been compromised. The old guard has been compromised, and they decide, okay, we gotta scatter to the wind. We gotta kind of hide ourselves again, and we can't be intervening in the lives of mortal humans anymore. We've tried it many times and it's just failed. Then we cut to Afghanistan, and so there's this character Nile, and she's a Marine, and we see her going through this sort of operation where there's like basically a person of interest within, I don't know, probably like Taliban or something like that, who's been causing problems, and so she's interrogating some people in order to find out where this person is. And some people this one woman kind of gives her the like, hey, he's over here, look. And the team of Marines goes into this building to try and find this guy and stop him. They're able to, well, they kind of apprehend him, but like then the guy gets shot. They were trying to, it's the classic, like, can't ask them questions if they're dead. So they accidentally kill him. And then Nile gets her throat slit by the guy. And at that point, she dies. But at this point, she is granted immortality for some reason, right? And so she has this thing happen to her. And then all the other old guard who are they're like on a plane or something, they can all feel what happened to her. Mm-hmm. And so they are all kind of keyed in, oh, there's another one of us. And they kind of piece together that she's a Marine in Afghanistan. And then Andy basically decides she's going to go and find her. So yeah, what'd you think of this? This is sort of interesting, like how it tells us, how these people are connected. They're all connected. They can all feel each other's pain.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool. I like at first when it was first happening, like you see her waking up and then it cuts to them on the plane and like they're kind of feeling it. I was super confused at first. I was like, why are they all kind of freaking out? And then you kind of get the gist of it later on that they're feeling her pain and they're like realizing that there's another one of them in the world as well. I thought that was kind of an interesting way to, I guess, to make that happen. I'm not sure if that's something that happens in the comic book because I haven't read the comic, but yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool that they have this connection and they all feel each other. I mean, that comes into play later. There's some other characters and basically, yeah, their connection that they have with each other is really important. Because if any one of them is suffering, they're all going to suffer, basically.
Yeah.
And so another thing that they said was like, no one had joined their team in over 200 years.
Yeah.
So this is something that happens very rarely, that someone, just wakes up and becomes immortal.
Yeah. Well, or maybe I think when it happens is when they find out that they're immortal and they're just kind of like, you don't die every day. So it's not something like you would find out every single day. So it's like you only find out that you are immortal once you start dying or you get hurt enough to die. And then that's probably how they know that they're connected. So she probably never got hurt enough for them to feel that connection.
Yeah, for sure. And there's also something to be said, like all of these people are some form of a warrior. Mm-hmm. And I think that even is sort of implied that they all have a lineage of people that are warriors or soldiers or something like that. So that's probably, again, another thing that plays into why these people why this happens to them, because it's never really clearly stated or put out there. But that does seem to be a common sort of line. Because I know Nile, they were saying that she came from a family of people that served in the military, and that seems to be the case with the others as well. But yeah, that's just, I guess, a theory. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see if they ever answer that question for us.
Yeah.
So then later on, we get introduced to the villain of the film. So this guy Merrick, and he's like, he runs this biotech firm. He's like the CEO or whatever, and so he is like trying to find them and, you know, basically find a way to take their abilities and, you know, capitalize on them pretty much so that they can sell it for profit.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you familiar with this actor? Have you ever seen him in anything before?
Yeah. He's Dudley Dursley in Harry Potter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I need to watch.
That's like the only thing I know him from, but yeah, I was just like, yep, that's Dudley Dursley. He looks completely different, but yeah.
Yeah, very Weasley guy for sure.
Yeah.
There's something about these like 21st century CEO type characters.
He's a Silicon Valley dude, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Except he's in the UK.
Yeah. I'm sure in London they have just as many.
Yeah.
You know, young, think they're super brilliant CEOs of companies who are just destroying the world in their own way.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I think at this point we'll try and go into more sort of spoilery territory. We've kind of given a brief overview, but like now we'll sort of dive into some of the things that you know, the bigger plot points of the movie. So the reason that Merrick knows that the old guard is sort of, you know, that they're possibly immortal is that Agent Copley showed them the footage that he recorded of them, you know, getting into that fight in wherever it was in Africa. And so that makes, and Copley's motivation is that he had, I think it was maybe his wife or some close family member died of, you know, cancer or something like that, some kind of disease early. And so he's investigating this as a way that they could get the powers, and then, you know, people in the future wouldn't have to, you know, to die the way that his family did. So that was interesting, kind of. You know, he's not just, at least Copley, he's not just like motivated
by the money. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even I call this thing, there's certain villains, I call it like the Pinky and the Brain syndrome. Because Pinky and the Brain, they say at the beginning of every episode, like, oh, why are we evil? We're evil because we have to be so that the show exists.
Yeah.
So there are certain characters that they're just like evil to make the movie happen. Those characters tend to not be the most interesting villains. The villains where there's some kind of motivation that you can understand.
Yeah.
Those tend to be more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, in the like long run of the film, if we're in the spoiler territory, I mean, he does kind of change sides and decides to help them, which I think is really great. It's a great character arc for him because you see all of the research that he's been doing on each of them. And it also helps, like, seeing that research helps Nile decide to stay and help the group as well, instead of just leaving because she doesn't want to be a part of any more violence than she has already inflicted. But yeah, I think having that character arc for him and any future sequels and having him in there would be kind of interesting to see how he helps them not only evade photography and videos and stuff in the 21st century, because that's kind of what he does with it anyway, with them towards the end of the film. I think would be kind of a fun little thing to explore in a future sequel if they have any more.
Yeah, for sure. I think he almost feels like the like there's like the James Bond character that gives James Bond, like, they tell them, oh, this is your mission, and oh, here's the guns or whatever. Or like the like in Batman, it's usually Alfred or characters like that, where they like that feels like that's the role that he plays.
Yeah, like the Alfred kind of. Yeah.
He gives them the mission. He helps them out. He gives them information. Maybe he gives them some weapons or connects them with someone. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think, that'd be pretty cool to see. Give him like a high tech kind of guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so Andy, she gets to Nile in Afghanistan and kind of, I thought that scene was a little weird to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if a person can just walk onto a military base in Afghanistan.
I think that she's had thousands of years of experience being very covert and sneaky. So that I understood, but how cavalier everyone is about Nile walking around was what really kind of was weird to me. Everyone was like, they were treating her with some distance, but at the same time, they were like, very like, oh, she got her neck's like slit. She should be dead, but she's up and walking around totally fine, completely healed. And I just thought that was more of the weird part than like Andy sneaking onto the base.
Yeah, they definitely like, because there's a part where someone tells her, oh, you gotta, or like her CO tells her, oh, you have to be here now.
Yeah.
And you kind of get the sense, it's like, you don't want to do that. You're gonna end up in a bad situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just let her walk away. I mean, you would think that they would just like kind of almost bring like the military police on her and just say, hey, you're going here now.
Yeah. Or like doing some kind of experiments on her. Like why is she completely healed? Like it's the military, it's the United States military. They would be doing some kind of experiment.
Yeah, totally. Because like when you're in the military, you are property of the U.S. government.
Yeah, pretty much.
They own you and they see you as an asset.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a lot of that stuff was strange, and so Andy basically gets Nile in a truck, and they drive into the middle of somewhere. And this is the moment where Andy sort of explains to Nile what's going on, a little bit of it, right? Gives her a little bit of a like, hey, you're immortal now, blah blah blah. Like we need to go. You need to go with me. And there are other people like us. And, Nile does it a little bit reluctantly, I should say. I mean, it makes sense, right? Some random person shows up and they're like, hey, come with me. I'd probably be like, I don't know you.
Yeah. Yeah, especially at this like very weird moment in your life where you got killed and then you're suddenly back. It like, I'd be like, can I just catch my breath and figure out my life right now?
Yeah, because it's really a moment. It's almost kind of feels like the Neo in the Matrix moment, taking the red pill, because she has to leave her life behind totally.
Yeah,
she has a
yeah, her family, like all of that stuff. Yeah,
and they're like, no, you got to leave them behind. That's over, and they, the old guard becomes her new family, and yeah, I mean that's not an easy sell.
No, because it's basically you're by yourself forever, and they kind of confront that later on with books, and like him having to be on his own forever, and it was just I could feel how hard it would be for her to kind of try to accept that.
Yeah, especially when it's not something she asked for, right? It just happened, and again, like in this film, they don't explain why it happens.
Like when she even asks, like she's like, "Why does it happen?" And they're like, "We don't know. We can't tell you."
Yeah, so that's definitely that's a mind trip, right?
Yeah.
So then Andy convinces Nile to get on to leave with her. They get on a plane headed for Paris. And on the plane, there's a fight scene between the two of them.
That was really cool.
Yeah, you like that fight scene?
Yeah, I mean, it's like it almost gets like the 0G fight scenes, kind of, when they're in like a 0G airplane. But I thought it was like super cool how they choreographed the way they use the space and the like netting and seatbelts and stuff within the plane for them to fight.
Yeah, it was cool, for sure. That was probably one of my favorite moments of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Was when they have that, it's kind of like there's always that like the new person testing their powers kind of fight,
Yeah.
And yeah, this felt really on point to that sort of a scene in the film. And so in the end, Andy sort of gets the upper hand on her, outsmarts her, because there's something with the pilot, like the pilot, she like told him to like act like he was dead, and then she got loose and all this stuff. Anyway, so then, long story short, they end up in Paris, right?
Yeah.
And they're at this like church or whatever, outside of a little bit outside of Paris, and here we get some more sort of exposition about sort of the backstory of the old guard, and they talk about this. So Nile has a dream about this woman. It's like she's this Asian woman. I forget like how you say her name.
I forget her name. I didn't write it down.
Yeah, it's like Q. It's like Qin. Something like that. It starts with a Q. Anyway, so this person had a really like this person is like, I think a lot of the reason why they're so fearful of mortal people, as it were. So she was it was basically like whenever the like the hysteria about people that were witches was in Europe.
Yeah.
And they put them on trial and killed them, and then when they came back to life, they said, "Oh, these people are witches." So they took this other person and they put her in a iron cage and threw it into the bottom of the ocean. And so that's basically, she suffered for however long, hundreds of years, just dying over and over and over again, and no one could help her. And that sort of scarred moment is something that lives on with the old guard forever about why they should fear society, basically. Yeah. So what do you think about this scene? Like, I thought it was pretty powerful.
Yeah. I mean, getting kind of a little bit more backstory on Andy's character, since they really played it up to be her being the like main character. You get a lot more information on like her and kind of what like the old guard becoming a thing, and how like they can die like eventually. That's not in this one. I think it might be in a later one, like a later flashback, that they talk about how they can actually die. But finding out like she had this really close friend, possibly even like a girlfriend, that like she was just, when they got ripped apart, it kind of broke Andy as much as it just kind of broke her trust in mortal people.
Yeah, and it's it's like one of those moments, like those character moments where it's something super traumatic in their past that really dictates how they're going to live the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Because she, like, that was, I think she even says like, "Oh, I lost a soldier," or something like that. And she feels like she really failed, and she doesn't want to fail and lose anyone else, pretty much. So yeah, that was a really, really powerful scene. And again, it sort of shows like they might be immortal, but they're not really, they have things to fear from other people. So yeah, there's I thought that was a pretty interesting scene. And so then they get sort of like ambushed by basically the people that, work for Merrick or whatever, and so they're trying to capture them. And so there's a sort of big fight scene, but Nicky and Joe get captured, and they're taken away to be turned into lab rats, pretty much, together. But then there's this interesting scene where like they're they get taken, and then they kind of profess their love for each other.
Well, I mean, they've been together for so long, but they kind of like show, like they express to the audience more than what they have before, and to kind of their captors that like they are immortal, but they have each other, which is kind of in the antithesis to the rest of the guard, because they're all alone, which is something that I know, like, they bring up with books a lot towards the end, that's something that he can't really grapple with, is the fact that he's alone all the time and he has to live his life alone. But Joe and Andy have each other, and that I think is like such a sweet, beautiful moment. And I'm like the most anti-romance kind of person, and I was like, oh, that's very sweet.
So this was like the romance that you liked.
Yeah, it's like romance in an action movie that's just like one like tiny little drop of romance, and then that's it. Nothing else. You understand that they care for each other, they get their moment, and then it's not like shoved in your face the rest of the time.
Yeah. It's not, they don't like overwhelm you with it.
Yeah.
Because the most of the rest of the film, they kind of allude to it, but yeah, there it's pretty, it's clearly stated. So then later what's revealed is that Booker is the one who betrayed them.
Yeah.
So, because he wants to just find a way to end it. He is sort of given up on the immortality thing. It doesn't, he's frustrated with it. But it's not really, it wasn't really getting him what he wanted. And so now they're in the situation where Nicky and Joe have been captured. And now they have to kind of figure out a way to get him out. And so that was another kind of big twist, that it was sort of one of their own turned against them.
That was something that once like Nile started to leave, like right before she left, I was like, I bet that there is something wrong, because she's just like, or Andy was kind of given like a side eye when she was like looking through the gear in the back of the car, and I was just like, there might be something going on. Somebody kind of betrayed them, possibly.
Yeah. There's a lot of betrayals going on here, right?
Yeah.
So what'd you think of the fight scene in the church where Andy like takes on a bunch of people?
I mean, I'm a huge Charlize Theron stan, so any fight scene that she's in is always great. It's very well choreographed. And I like that they kind of allude to her getting stabbed, but they don't like make a big deal about it, and she definitely doesn't make a big deal about it until like kind of after everything started to cool down, which I thought was kind of a great character moment for Andy.
Yeah, there's a scene later on with Booker where they see that she's bleeding, and he's like, "What? You're bleeding? How's that?
Yeah.
How's that happening?" Because like you were saying before, there's another flashback that happens where there was another person who was another one of their old guard soldiers who dies in battle. So there is a limit to their immortality. Like there is a I guess a number of deaths that they have before they are gone, or a certain amount of time. But yeah, this guy died in battle, and that was like his final fight, pretty much. So there are limits, but it's sort of, they don't know when, right?
Yeah.
So they're kind of human in that way, because at any moment they could just die, and we see Andy, she gets injured more than she would expect to have in a fight. And so, that could have been the end for her, right?
Yeah.
So, they do a pretty good job of like, they're immortal, but they have sort of the same kind of human feelings and issues that we have.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the film, there's a mission, they go to this, basically the company where Merrick is holding Nicky and Joe, and they break them out. And there's this final big confrontation, and Nile, she like dive bombs the Merrick out of a building and crashes into a car.
Yeah, that was insane. That whole sequence, like, and the choreographing of them, like, protecting Andy was really cool. And just like, that whole like last 15 minutes is probably one of the more fun sequences, and I'm kind of sad that they held back such a great sequence till the very end and they didn't like add more throughout, but I really did like that was probably my favorite part.
And this is, again, we get to see more of the axe wielded by Andy.
Mm-hmm.
Finally.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah, which is kind of weird because, like, in the fight in Paris, she doesn't use it at all, which is kind of disappointing.
No.
She's taking out like 24 guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess she's like, oh, I can get more people with just a gun than I can with having the axe. It's more close range than having a gun, which is long range.
Yeah, for sure. And so at the end of the film, we get this sort of postscript where, again, it's Copley and the rest of the old guard. So at this point, it's Nicky, Joe, Nile, Andy, and Booker, and they're all sort of together, and they decide, okay, we're gonna do missions together as a team, and we're going to, do good, basically. And Copley is going to be the one to, find missions for them and send them off. And and that's basically the film.
Well, they do excommunicate Booker for a little bit there because, I mean, he betrayed them pretty much.
Yeah, he deserves it.
Yeah.
Right.
Very much.
He deserved it, for sure. So, but it's what, for like 20 years or something?
Yeah, I don't think it's for like very long, for them at least.
Mm-hmm.
For them to be like, yeah, you go do your thing, kind of stay on the DL, and then you can come meet us here, and we'll reevaluate.
Yeah. So Nile kind of replaces him, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. So, so who was like your favorite character, would you say, in the film?
Probably Nile. I wish they could have utilized her more. I feel like they underutilized her because they wanted to do sequels and kind of build her character up more in those. But yeah, I really liked the introduction to her character and her character growth and her building, and like the arc of her wanting to leave, but then she also decides to come back and help them.
Yeah, I felt like there was sort of a conflict in the film where Nile is like our sort of avenue into understanding the old guard. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a character who's out of water, who's coming in. This is totally new for her. Sort of like us, the audience, we don't understand all these things. But there's also it's also really, I feel like the story is about Andy. It's about Charlize Theron's character.
Yeah.
And so that conflict to me kind of created some problems in the film where they're kind of like our avenue should have been the Nile character, but the Andy character is so much more powerful that it just ends up really being from her perspective.
Yeah.
Which I think would be fine, but if it's her movie and she's the main character, just give her more stuff and have it be really centered totally around her. More.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, I think in the sequel, if they do one, they'll be able to sort of address that more.
Yeah, especially if Andy is kind of in danger of actually dying.
Yeah.
It would definitely be shifted over to more of Nile's perspective.
Yeah. And so, speaking of a sequel, like, do you want to see a sequel after seeing this first film? Would you be happy if they decided to make one?
I would watch it. I'm kind of like, if they make it, they make it. If not, they don't. Like, I mean, it ended on a little bit of a cliffhanger, and I would like to see kind of that cliffhanger wrapped up. But at the same time, I'm like, it's like a middling kind of movie for me. I was in it more for the Charlize Theron action than anything.
Yeah, for sure. More of that axe, please. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Or she like hands it over to Nile in the sequel or something.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so what were your final thoughts about the film? What were the things, I guess, that you really liked, and what were the things that you felt just didn't work?
One thing that I am a big proponent of is female writers and directors, and this was a female written or co-written, I believe, with the comic book author, and then it was directed by a female. And you can tell in the action sequences that it is a female-directed film because most male-directed films. They are like just quick cuts. It's a Fast and the Furious movie. It's a Jason Bourne movie. There's just no like, it's all action, and it's like 2 frames and then they cut, and it's a mess for me visually. But in a female-directed film, it's very smooth action, long action sequences, especially in the airplane fight scene. It's just like this very long sweeping action, and the camera kind of has a chance to breathe and move around. So I really, really liked that, the ability to kind of get a grasp on what is happening within the fight and the action, than to kind of just not know what to look at. Yeah, that was probably my favorite thing, was the difference in action directing from a female versus male perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's definitely, I forget who the director was for this film, but she, I think, did a pretty good job, especially with the, like you're saying, the fights and choreography was well done.
Yeah.
I definitely liked that. I liked Charlize Theron's character. Like, was probably my favorite part of the film. And I wish that in terms of the plot, they had sort of decided on one thing or the other, in terms of like making it about Andy or making it about Nile. Because it kind of does feel like they're going to hand it off to Nile in the next movie if they did another movie. It's kind of what it feels like, but
yeah.
Who knows? It's just, there's a lot of stuff outside of the action scenes that's just kind of a little average to me. It just didn't really, didn't really draw me in as much as like other films. But yeah, overall, I thought it was fine. I definitely think it was worth watching. It's fun. Yeah. Summer blockbuster movie when you can't leave the house because of COVID.
It would have been cool to see it on like a big screen, but I mean, I guess since you can't have that, it's good enough to see on like a TV screen. Yeah,
for sure. Well, we definitely can't have it in like, certain places like California or New York.
Yeah.
Where theaters are actually closed.
Yeah, sadly.
Sadly, yeah. So yeah, I think that's our review of The Old Guard. Cool. Yeah, so I think we both felt like it was pretty good, but there were some parts a little underwhelming. Yeah, overall, it's okay. And if they do a sequel, be cool.
Yeah.
But if they don't, not really a loss for the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I highly suspect that they will, because I remember they released some numbers about how successful their original films are, and this made I think even the top 5.
Yeah, I think I would check the week after it came out, it was number 1 or number 2 on that scroll that they have on the Netflix homepage. So it did pretty well.
Yeah, and so I think they said it was 90 million unique viewers or 90 million households.
Something like that, yeah. They also did a really great job of marketing it too, I think, which helped a lot.
Yeah, they did. I mean, it helps when you have these really big actors, right? Like Charlize Theron. That kind of stuff really kind of, and it's just a lot of times people say Netflix doesn't do a very good job of promoting, but yeah, this film they really did. They really got it out there. People knew it's coming out this day. It's got Charlize Theron in it. You've seen the trailer, and it's okay, I'm watching this thing.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens going forward. I suspect pretty likely there's going to be a sequel. I'd say. Hopefully that'll be good, and they'll kind of continue. We'll get some more axe fighting.
Yeah. Bring back the axe.
Bring back the axe, right? All right, cool. Is there anything else you want to say? Anything you want to promote? Any of your stuff coming up?
I may be actually making a video review on my channel for Mulan next week, so look out for that. I don't know if it's for sure yet, if I will have the energy this weekend once I watch the movie, but look out for that. Otherwise, I'm just, everywhere on the internet.
Yeah. Cool. Are you going to do a watch party, or are you going to watch on Disney+?
No, I mean, it's just me by myself in my apartment. I may FaceTime my friends because they all have Disney Plus and they're all planning on getting it, but we haven't really talked about that yet.
Yeah, you guys could do a Discord party.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I look forward to that. Definitely, Mulan was one of the movies was coming out that I was really excited about. So
Me too.
love to see your review. All right. Well, yeah, that's it for now. Thanks a lot, everyone, for coming by, and we'll see you again next week.